A land from the Arabian Nights, home of Sinbad the Sailor. Filled with secrets and magic. The kingdom of scents and colors. A land with many faces. Diverse and surprising. As wild as it is peace-loving. A country that lives out its traditions and welcomes the modern age. Oman. Sunrise in the Orient. The call of the muezzin awakens the Arab metropolis. The Sultanate of Oman is a coastal state on the Arabian Peninsula. It's nearly 3 times the size of England, but only has half the population of London. The capital city, Muscat, lies in a bay enclosed by rock face. Muscat is a flourishing metropolis. This is mainly thanks to the reigning Sultan, Qaboos ibn Said. The Sultan was educated in Europe. Since taking over the rule of the country in 1970, he has been making efforts to modernize it. Prestigious buildings were erected for the education and spiritual well-being of his subjects. Oman's main mosque carries the name of its ruler. It was designed by 2 architectural firms from London and built within 6 years. In the 50-meter-high dome hangs one of the largest chandeliers in the world. Made by a German-Italian company, it has over 1,000 lamps and weighs almost 8 tons. The enormous prayer rug was made in Iran. 600 weavers worked on it in shifts for 3 years. The male prayer hall offers space for over 6,000 believers. The mosque also has a public library. A cultural, educational, and religious center very much in the spirit of the Sultan. The name of the capital, Muscat, roughly translates as place to anchor in Arabic. This is where the story of Sinbad the Sailor was born. Sailing is still popular in Oman. Unlike in the times of Sinbad, women are now also at the helm. Like the ladies from Oman Sail. Since it was founded in 2008, this women's team has won many regattas. In charge is the team's co-founder, Ibtisam Al-Salmi.
I like everything about sailing. Yeah, it's great adventures and good fun with your team. Everyone like improving, everyone trying to do their best. I have a great team here and we're all one hand.
They're training for their next regatta. Especially in the regional competitions, their opponents are usually all-male crews.
We're preparing for Sailing Arabia, the tour. It's one of the biggest races in GCC countries, and it will be a really great idea and good opportunities for the women to, sail in this race and like compete with the boys and beat them sometimes.
They have the speed. The small women's team can sail up to 70 kilometers an hour in the Gulf of Oman. Along the coast, a few kilometers south of Muscat, a piece of Omani wilderness has found a refuge. Here, the rare Arabian desert gazelles lead an unromantic existence between the motorway and new settlement buildings. The animals seem restless and tense. And no wonder with that traffic. At least they have their own bodyguards who are there to protect them from all harm. Ali Al-Gadani is one of them. Together with his colleagues at the reserve's ranger station, he tries to keep an eye on as many animals as possible. Like his father before him, he is entirely dedicated to the animals' protection. And unfortunately, this protection is urgently needed. We're dealing with hunting attempts in this nature reserve on an almost daily basis. A daily basis. However, we're arresting at least one hunter red-handed every 2 months. The reason why attempts have increased over the past years is the location of the reserve between two main roads, the interior expressway and the coastal road. These two roads give quick and easy access to the gazelles. In addition, hunters can easily watch the gazelles crossing or standing nearby these two roads. In general, we're experiencing countless hunting attempts in this reserve. However, with our team's efforts, we thank God that we've managed to seize many convicted hunters over the past years. The coastal road leads south to the entrance into the so-called Wadi Tiwi, a river valley that has not yet been developed. There was once an important trading port at the river's mouth. Some of the goods were transported from there high up into the Wadi Tiwi by donkey, bringing them to the peaks and lowland oases of this peninsula. It is one of the few river valleys in Oman that continues to carry water in the dry season. A valuable commodity in a desert state. And a safe habitat for the common garra fish, which dwell in almost every Arabian waterway. To supply even those gardens high up in the Wadi rock face with water, the locals have learnt how to irrigate. Countless small canals line the roads and run along the steep cliffs. In some areas, the water seems to flow freely. Elsewhere, it's channeled in canals and flows along the mountains like stone-encased veins. These so-called Fage systems supply whole villages, gardens, or even individual plants with water. The date palm has always been one of the most important plants in the north of Oman. To ensure they receive the best care, some even have their own flower pots. The farmers bring painstakingly gathered goat dung, often from far away. It is an essential fertilizer, without which it would not be possible to farm these oases sustainably. The plants take minerals away from the soil, which can only be replaced by the dung. But there is still a lot more work to be done in these gardens. The secrets of oasis gardening have been handed down by word of mouth for centuries, a wisdom that is now slowly being lost. For example, that these gardens are everything but a monoculture. The date palm towers over the other plants, protecting them from the searing sun. Wheat, maize, bananas, papaya, mango, and even cotton flourish in their shade. The older the tree gets, the higher it grows. Even though its owner, Amor Salem Asadi, has matured with his tree, it takes increasingly acrobatic feats to prune it. The quality of Omani dates is famed throughout the Middle East. This is especially because the gardeners tend to their trees with extreme care. Amor al-Sadi does not just remove the old leaves and excess bark. At certain times of the year, he frees up the palm's flower head and ensures it will be pollinated. Amor used to work alone, but he now has support from one of the migrant workers that make up almost half of the population of Oman. The date palm won't survive without all this management. The most important thing is the manual pollination, or the whole harvest will be damaged. How do you care for your date palms at home? Amor's colleague, Suhail Aboklahad, comes from Bangladesh. My family's in Bangladesh. I just got married 5 months ago. Children, yes. We're expecting a baby. I was in Bangladesh for 4 months before I returned back to my work in Oman. I only arrived here 1 month ago, and my wife was still pregnant. Therefore, I don't have my family here with me. I only have my brother here working with me. The small river flows gently through the valley. It flows so calmly that the odd hiker may forget that it only takes a little rainfall in the mountains to turn it into a raging and deadly stream. This is why the small village of Mibam enjoys its sheltered location along the upper reaches of the river. It is the last village in the Wadi Tiwi that is only accessible by a narrow and difficult road. In a time of smartphones, this small world will probably become too restrictive for the younger generation. The road ends at the town's edge. Only the donkey trail leads higher up into the wadi. Until 40 years ago, for the people living on the Arabian Peninsula, this used to be the only path to the outside world. It leads from the sea high up into the Al-Hajar Mountains, where traders would once transport their goods. Only a few crows now circle. Sometimes they're joined by an Egyptian vulture, which looks down over the deserted ravines. From the Wadi Tiwi, goods were brought far into the northwest of the Al-Hajar Mountains until the Middle Ages. Various different tribes had settled in the mountains. Their houses nestle snugly against the rocky walls. Some of the villages are still inhabited today, but there is neither electricity nor running water. The Sultanate has gained its wealth from its oil and gas reserves. The profits are going towards the building of modern housing in the valley. Some of the former residents still use their clay huts in the mountains, at least occasionally. One of them is the beekeeper Sokr al-Abri. This is where his bees continue to find their food. He drives into the old village at least once a week and goes along the narrow alleyways to his colonies. Al-Abri's bees live in modern hives made from wood. He used to keep them in the hollowed-out trunks of felled date palms. The Arabic word for bee, nakhlat, means God's gift, and that is exactly how the bees are treated. The agricultural authorities take great care to preserve the so-called Omani dynasty bee colonies. Just last year, the export of queen bees was prohibited. They are to reign only in their native land. As a matter of fact, honeybees have 3 seasons per year. The first season is in March, which is a general flower season. The second season is in May, which is the season of acacia flower. And the third is Az-Zadr, the Sisyphus season, which almost starts in October. Omani honeybees are not aggressive, and therefore you can open an active beehive without wearing a mask. They're characterized by their small size compared to other varieties such as the Egyptian bees, which are much bigger and more aggressive. Sokr al-Abri has to check on his colonies regularly, for even in the Omani mountains, bees are not immune to pests. Luckily, he has the right medicine. Whenever necessary, he prepares a herbal treatment for them. This can help in controlling Varroa disease by fumigation. We use the resin of this tree, Gugul, which is available in our village, Misfat al-Abriyin. We also use thyme, which has a strong smell, similar to green tea. We mix these 2 plants and burn them inside the smoker to treat and control Varroa disease. This treatment is very effective for the disease, and we use it regularly. When Al-Abri's work is done, he will return to the valley, where he, like so many of his fellow villagers, has a large new house to call his own. One of the Sultan's declared goals is to inject money from the oil business into modernizing infrastructure, the health system, and education. Upon entering adulthood, every citizen is given a plot of land. In addition, the kingdom supports any home construction with a generous sum of cash. But even if people are now living in smart villas, they are far from giving up their traditions. Even in the modern settlements, goats are kept, and traditional craftsmanship is upheld. Until a few years ago, Saif al-Abri and his family lived in Wadi in the mountains and worked as a weaver. A landslide blocked the only access way to his village. He gave up everything and moved here. He continues to weave in the garage of his new home. He still uses the same loom and employs the same technique. Not even the materials have changed. He only uses pure goat hair that he buys directly from the shepherds in the mountains. The colors are natural, and there's no need for chemical additives. You can make 3 colors from the white wool. I mean the orange and red colors. You should boil the white wool yarn for 3 hours with the dye to get these colors. The traditional carpets are very popular. Even more as wall decoration than carpets or to sit on. The weaving craft has been in the family for many generations. And not just the skill itself, but also the tools of the trade. This piece is from olive wood. We've used it for more than 65 years and learned to weave with it. I learned more than 30 years ago. We start with collecting sheep wool, then sorting, carding and combing it before we start spinning the wool into yarn. After that, we wash the yarn, dye it, and add mordant fixatives before we use it for weaving. Whilst many things remain the same, other things are also changing for the weaver. Nowadays, things aren't like they were before. We've been approached by many customers, some Omanis, but many tourists. We'll do everything to preserve this craft, because we've learnt it from our ancestors and we have to pass it on to our descendants. It's our duty to preserve our cultural heritage. Because the carpets are woven by hand and take several weeks to make, they can have a high price label, especially for tourists, ensuring the weaving handcraft in this country as a job with a future. The highest point in the country is in the Al Hajar Mountains, the so-called Jebel Shams. It is considered one of the most beautiful places for the Omani sunset. Deep in the belly of the mountains, there is darkness. A fairyland in itself is the Al Khuta stalactite cave. Once night falls, the mouse-tailed bats begin to stir. Soon they will go out and hunt for food. The Al Khuta cave is over 2 million years old and almost 5 kilometers deep into the mountain. In the so-called large fish lake, deep inside the Al Khuta, live garrafish that are white and have no eyes. The fish are common in waters outside the cave. There they are colorful and can see. Before sunrise, something is going on in the mountains. A clandestine meeting, perhaps, in an abandoned mountain village. Along the narrow alleyways of Misfat al-Abrin, slippery stone steps that have been worn bare lead down to the center of the village. A light is already on in one of the clay huts. The mystery is solved. Breakfast is being served. It was prepared far down in the valley, in the modern kitchens. It is for Misfat al-Abrian's new inhabitants, tourists. Ahmed al-Abri has turned his old village into a hotel. He couldn't bear the thought of letting his childhood home fall into decay. He convinced his family and then his neighbors.
Actually, we don't have a kitchen here in the house. The food comes from the families because our vision to involve the locals as much as we can. So one of the things, we bought the food from the locals. It's made by the people, Omani people. Because we involve as much as we can the locals, not only in the purchasing the food, no, in the other business, in the other services. So I cannot say it's my own business or project. It's like a big family project.
This hotel offers visitors from all over the world the chance to sleep like an Omani, in accommodation away from the modern guest houses. And so the little mountain village is undergoing a revival. Using the huts as guest houses has an added side benefit. The village's Oasis gardens continue to be maintained and preserved. As are the centuries-old irrigation structures, the Fage System. It's considered to be highly complicated and can only be used by experts. The so-called wakir, the water master, monitors the water flow, as each plot can only be flooded for a certain amount of time. The water's source is high up in the mountains. Only once a week is it channeled to Misfat. When the wakir closes off a tributary, the water finds another direction within the artificially created barrages and open canals. The irrigation system is thought to have been brought to Oman by the Persians around 600 BC. Parts of it were designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2006, such as the Falaj Daris, the largest irrigation channel in Oman. It supplies the oasis city Nizwa. Nizwa lies along the southern edge of the Al-Hajar Mountains. Around 70,000 people live here. The city is well known for its Friday goat market. Animal breeders come from across the region to get the best prices for their livestock. The goats are presented in a circular arena in the middle of the market version of a catwalk. If an agreement is reached, a sale is sealed with a handshake as well as a payment. It's like an auction, looking at the size, whether it has meat or doesn't, and the type as well, if they're healthy or not. There's no fooling the experts.
You can see it by the way with the walking and the height of it. This is, you can see it's healthy. And also some people looking for the teeth. If they're still there, so it's young, and it's old, the teeth start fill down.
The goats have no choice. They're grabbed and groped and put through their paces, and may well be rejected at the end of it all. A quality feature is their origin. The best specimens supposedly come from the mountains to the southwest of Nizwa. In the small village of Halut, on the upper end of the Wadi Tiwi valley, they're herded out to pasture. The women in the village do this job. Every morning, they gather their animals from the various houses. They herd them to the best grazing areas in the mountains and up to the plateaus. The old men stay behind, and because there's no school on Fridays, the children are there too. Just one of the men is also setting off. Today, it's Jamis al-Mukahimi's turn to do the watering. The Kbir Oasis, which was home to him and other members of the village until a few years ago, lies on the upper end of the Wadi Tiwi. It can only be reached by donkey. It seems that neither of them are particularly eager to make the difficult journey to the work that awaits them. Because no one has anything to do on a Friday, the Islamic Sunday, the spectacle unfolds in front of an audience. Mr. Mukahimi has no idea that today a surprise is waiting for him. Up in the mountains, the Wadi Tiwi seems too narrow even for a donkey track. Between the gorges, the Kbir Oasis opens up. Up until a few years ago, people lived here throughout the year. The irrigation system is only set in motion every 2 days. Jamis al-Mukahimi has been doing this work for decades. He's spent most of his life here and seen a lot. An echo announces visitors. The scientists Mohammed Al-Rawahi, Andreas Burkert and Eva Schlecht have brought a present for the Oasis farmer. He and the professors from Germany have enjoyed a long friendship. The agricultural ecologists have been researching Oasis cultivation for a long time. Their publications can even be found in the libraries of Oman. The researchers discovered that plants, once brought here over the old trade routes, were still being cultivated today. They consider the desert gardens to be genetic treasure troves. Which is why the present is more of a returning of a borrowed item. The Oasis banana of Oman, an offshoot from the botanical garden of the University of Kassel. Burkert discovered the plant, one of the last of its species, over 10 years ago in Mukahami's Oasis, and was allowed to take it away for research. Testing in the laboratories in Germany showed that this banana was resistant to pests and fungi that our common banana was not. It probably came here hundreds of years ago with traveling traders. Today, it has become extinct everywhere else in the world and has only survived in this oasis. I met them up there near the village and then took them to where we grow the bananas. I helped them to take some plant samples and then accompanied them back to the village. Understanding Omani oases and preserving them despite the ongoing rural exodus is an important issue for the scientists. But first, it's time for the country's typical hospitality, with halva made from homegrown dates and spiced coffee. The Omani Oasis banana has meanwhile made a career for itself.
And the banana now is both in the botanic garden in Muscat, but also it is in the world's collection of banana, because it's a heritage of humanity, originally coming from Malaysia, from the Philippines, through Omani sailors, possibly through India or through Zanzibar, and then arriving at Tiwi and then coming here. And you and your families, they have cultivated it for hundreds of years. So we're very thankful to bring back some of what you have given to the world.
Alhamdulillah.
Thanks to the maritime trading with goods from all over the world, Oman has been a wealthy and influential country for a long time. The boats for transporting the goods were made south of the mouth of the Wadi Tiwi in Sur. Already in the 6th century, the city was the central hub for the trade with East Africa. Legends claim that once upon a time, Sinbad's ships were built here, in the shipyards of Sur. The boats that are built here are called dhows, a collective term that in these latitudes covers almost 60 types of ship. Even in Sur, it is now the Indian migrant workers who actually build the ships. It's extremely tough work. The hull is made from soft cedar or acacia wood, while robust teak wood is used for the keel and planks. This business has been in the hands of the Omani for many generations. Khaled bin Juma bin Hassum al-Oremi is the owner's son and manages the business. We have almost 15 workers working under our supervision. 4 of them are currently on vacation. The estimated time to build one traditional wooden ship is almost 8 months. Actually, it takes around 7 to 8 months to build such a ship. This ship under construction belongs to people from Qatar, and they will use it for tourism purposes in Qatar. Every year, we have at least one order to build 1 or 2 ships for customers from Qatar. Depending on the features, the wooden gems can cost up to 200,000 Omani Rial, around 500,000 euros. The shipbuilders buy the acacia and cedar wood here in Oman. The teak is imported from Malaysia, India, Burma, and South Africa. There is no template. Every dhow that is made here is unique. This is the only shipping yard in the Middle East that still makes dhows by hand, just as in Sinbad's times. We inherited this profession a long time ago from our parents and grandparents. For example, my father and his father were all working in the shipbuilding industry, and we will continue. We'll bring our children here and teach them this profession. The dhows have shaped Sur. The city has an almost Mediterranean feel to it, perhaps due to the steady international influence that it's gained from the traveling traders. Sur has a turbulent history. In the 16th century, it was under Portuguese rule. 100 years later, it was freed and enjoyed a rebirth. But with the opening of the Suez Canal in the 19th century, the trading port finally sank into insignificance. Nowadays, it's considered as one of the most beautiful cities in Oman, with a high quality of life. Constructions such as the Khor al-Bata hanging bridge are a testament to the city's modernization. Yet much of Sur still revolves around shipbuilding. Like the Fatar al-Khair, an Omani captain saw this historic dhow in Yemen and brought it home to Oman, where it was painstakingly restored. Sur is the most eastern city in Arabia, the first to glance at the sunrise, and now home to a large natural gas liquefaction plant. Many of Sur's 100,000 inhabitants work there. At least for now, natural gas is bringing wealth and influence back to this coastal town. If one travels inland from Sur, there is only desert. Even before sunrise, there is something moving between the dunes. Where moments ago there was dark nothing, a race is now being prepared. The small robots on the camels' backs have replaced children who used to serve as jockeys until just a few years ago. Using all their strength, the men set up the seemingly archaic starting device. The racing camels and their robot jockeys are at the starting line. And they're off. The men in the cars try to get the animals going with loud noises and wild threats. As desert creatures, camels are born to conserve energy. It takes a lot of motivation to get these animals to suddenly perform sporting feats. That's what the remote control whip function in the small robots is for. The robots sit more securely in the saddle than children, who would often hurt themselves, sometimes fatally, in the chaos that is camel racing. As once the animals have got moving, they're almost unstoppable. These early morning races are showdowns of strength. both for the camels and for the cars. After the sun has risen, it quickly becomes too hot. In the start positions once again. A last wild race between man and beast. And then the spectacle is over. More than 3/4 of Oman's surface area is rock, scree, and sandy desert. The Shakia sands lie to the west of Sur. It is a formidable dune landscape, stretching south for 12,000 square kilometers. The desert expanse is so extensive, it can clearly be seen by satellite. This is where the Bedouins live, the nomads of the desert. Camels were once vital for their survival. Milk, food, and transport all depended on these animals. And although Bedouins now live in air-conditioned houses and get around in four-wheel drives, they will not give up their camels. Take Abdullah al-Mugairi and his brothers. They are dedicated to caring for their animals, even if that means the regular removal of giant ticks.
Always not very relaxing. Same the mosquito, you know. It's hard for the body.
Nothing is too much for their camels.
Take them doctor sometimes, take them shower, sometimes take them a nice drink, vitamin C, honey and oil from the cow mixed together, milk, sometimes some tablet also. Eat dates and grass, alfalfa. The camel also, now with the time you have a baby, also maybe drink milk from the camel and drink, very healthy milk. Sometimes meat also good, not my camel, from the shop.
Abdullah al-Mugairi's family have been living in the Shakia desert for many generations. It was formed about 2 million years ago. Hot southwestern monsoon winds and shamal sandstorms from the northwest have formed these dunes. Some reach 200 meters high. The beauty of the Shakia keeps the al-Mugairi brothers here. They have academic qualifications, houses, and cars. Nevertheless, many years ago, they decided they would continue to earn their money in the desert. They offer camel tours. Rajid al-Mugairi, the eldest, manages the business from his office in Muscat. But he comes out to the desert whenever he can.
We organized our camel here to put the saddle there to be nicely done, not to hurt them. And this how was in the past. What was the camel? It's very important for the Bedouin, and not only for the Bedouin, everyone, because there was no car this time. And they've been traveling with a camel, and this is the best friend of the Bedouin.
This age-old connection is still there today. Even if they no longer travel long distances, they do give insight into a once deprived everyday life, lonely and in close touch with nature. And not least, it is a way for the Bedouins to preserve a part of their traditional way of life.
The Bedouin, when they will travel normally after a long day of traveling with a camel or whatever, they will start to collect wood and they will start the fire. And here what we're making here, Omani coffee. But the coffee will be without any sugar because still we have the sugar from the dates. This is why we'll start with the tamar first. And we'll eat the dates and later we'll get the coffee. And this they want to be any time, any house, ready any time. This is the first welcome. I am now between desert and city because of our business here, and actually I miss it, and we love the desert. It's home for us.
In the heart of Oman, in the middle of the desert, only highly adapted animals survive, such as the Arabian oryx antelope. They can go for several days without water. Their white fur reflects the sun's rays and protects them from the heat. Thousands of them once roamed the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula. Today, these are the last of their kind. Even these oryx antelope are no longer free and wild. Quite the opposite. They are fenced in a large high-security area for their own protection. For the antelope, the fenced-off area is far too small. They cannot even find enough food here. So a team of experts looks after them. Like the biologist Zarhir Sulim Al-Alawi and the vet Bishnu Babu Tiwari. The proud Arabian onyxes are fed twice a day with hay that has to be brought here from many kilometers away. Oryx antelopes usually follow long migration paths through the vast desert, looking for food. Their captivity creates a lot of issues, such as behavioral problems and stress. The biologist and the vet have to keep the animals under close observation so they can intervene in time.
The important thing is hunting here. So the number will reduce the last years. So only our solution for make it enclosure.
Now we're keeping them here like a domestic animal. You can see this is the herd here. This is what we're using. It's especially for domestic animals.
We are giving our Oric. I have one expectation. They have to decide one release program in the wild with the secure environment. We have to maintain security from our local people. They must know about the value of Arabian Oryx, and punishment must be strong, not like as sometimes 50 real or sometimes okay, hi, hello, this is the first time for me. Not like this. Should be strong, and even lifetime they must be inside the prison.
Oil deposits in the reservation has meant the area has been made even smaller. New roads are now making this unspoiled and enormous desert accessible for the workers on the new development. There is no longer a space for the oryx antelope in their native land. From the reserve in Haima, it is almost a whole day's drive through the desert to the so-called incense route in the Dhofar Governorate. There are only a few places in the world where frankincense trees grow, and Dhofar is one of them. This already brought wealth and status to Oman a long time ago. As they are here, the trees are partly grown in plantations. But most of the frankincense trees in Dhofar are still wild. Their ownership is not fixed, but handed down through century-old family traditions and respected accordingly. Fatima Ardil and Toful Zaid do not share the trees, but they do share the labor. They both walk for kilometers into the mountains to harvest the sticky, milky tree sap. The tree is reluctant to give up its frankincense.
This job is very tough. I am using techniques from my great-grandfather. The first thing we do when we collect the frankincense, we work all day here and harvest nothing. And then, after 15 days, we come back and we will cut again and we will collect nothing. The third time, we will start collecting, but the quantity will be very little. And the fourth time and the fifth time will be more and more. But it is very hard work.
Fatima is already a grandmother, but still makes the journey several days a week.
The best time to start is in the hot season, the dry season. And then we continue until the beginning of the monsoon. Then the weather changes. It becomes cold, so the income becomes less. But now, most of the time, we continue with this job.
Frankincense is not just frankincense.
There are 3 or 4 types, and there is one that is white, and then grey, and dark ones. And the white one is the best one. After cutting, the tree will get spoiled, but if you do it properly, you can cut for a long time.
Today, the women are cutting the tree for the 3rd time. They'll be able to take some frankincense home. To the southwest of Dhofar, the mist from the sea is sometimes trapped in the highlands and conjures up blossoms in the barren landscape. Desert roses, aloe vera and water hyssop trees have found their niche in the southwest of these mountains. The local people use many of these plants medicinally. The incense route from the desert crosses the highlands as a busy highway. From there, it only goes down, a straight descent into the center of Dhofar to Salalah. Like the capital Muscat in the north of Oman, Salalah is also a city that's being rebuilt. Everywhere, new road networks and buildings are going up simultaneously, changing the country considerably in just a few years. Salalah is the metropolis of the south. Palm tree-lined beaches and a holidaymaker's paradise for frozen Europeans or the Arabian neighbors of the Sultanate. Even the underwater world leaves nothing to be desired. Along the coast towards the east, a fish fauna rich in species inhabits the coral reefs. And where there are lots of fish, there are a lot of fish hunters. In winter, dolphins swim up to the stone coasts and southern beaches, almost close enough to be touched. Here, the ocean mammals find plenty of food. After high tide, they swim back out to sea with full bellies. It's not only dolphins who profit from the diversity in the coastal waters. Fishing has always been one of the main food sources for the Omanis. With small boats and traditional dhows, the fishermen go out to sea every day to provide for their families. In the village of Mirbat, to the northeast of Salalah, almost all of the locals live from fishing. The village life plays out in the port. Everyone wants a bit of the big catch, and often it's enjoyed then and there. Raw or on the harbour restaurant grill. Typical for Salalah, car door delivery. One can be forgiven for thinking the drive-in was invented here. But it's not only Salalah's ocean that's full of delicacies. The town itself is referred to as the Garden of Oman. All along the coast and far into the city, there are row upon row of plantations. Their yields cover much of the country's fruit and vegetable needs. Dates do not grow in the south of Oman, only coconut trees. Most of the plants and vegetable types in the north of the country can be found here too. The plantations cover a wider area here, different to the small oases of the north. Yet the people in the south of Oman have taken over some of the wisdom from the northern desert oases. Layering. High-growing perennial plants create an upper layer, providing shade for the smaller, more delicate flowers. The Garden of Salalah, an oasis in very big style. On the edge of the plantation, the farmers sell their fresh produce directly from little stalls. Like most of the small farmers, Asfirodam does not come here from Oman, but from India. Its vegetables, on the other hand, are local. These are all from Salalah. This banana and the other one called milk banana come from nearby farms. Nothing is imported from outside Oman. Everything comes from Salalah. Coconuts and papayas. A kilo from this banana costs 300 biza and the other one costs 600 biza. This is milk banana and this is Salalah banana. Those who want to sell something in Salalah are well advised to set up shop near the road. The city's inhabitants do not like to get out of their cars, neither to eat nor to buy food. Without setting a foot on the ground, they order the favorite local southern refreshment. Coconut water. The juice of a coconut that has been harvested too early, so it's not quite ripe. Cooled and expertly prepared, it's simple, tasty, and even healthy. making the vegetable ordering go very smoothly indeed. Like in many Arabian countries, the goods and services industry mainly employs cheap labor from the Philippines, Pakistan, or India. It's not easy for a migrant worker to get a foothold in Oman, and like Asfirodam has done, to then bring the family over too. I'm from India, from Hyderabad. I came to Salalah in 1995. Before that time, my father and my brother used to work here. They asked me to come here, and they arranged a working visa for me with their Omani sponsor. At the beginning, it was very difficult for me because I couldn't speak Arabic. But now, thank God, things are better as I can. The Dhofar Mountains rise along the eastern edge of Salalah, just half an hour's drive away. This is where the largest predator on the peninsula has retreated to, high up to 1,800 meters. The few people that are allowed to set foot here can do so only for research purposes. The road is a little bumpy. Even at this altitude, it is hot and dry on the Jebel Shams, the highest mountain of Dhofar.
This is like leopard range here, and these animals, they are quite elusive animals. They live in quite, they are shy animals. They live far away from people, and we have to walk quite a long distance sometimes to find their core habitats and set up camera traps and look for their sign in those areas.
Hadi al-Hikmani had already come into contact with leopard researchers from England when he was a child. For years, they stayed in his family home at the foot of the Dhofar Mountains. Later, as a young man, he would accompany the researchers into the almost impassable heights of his homeland and learnt to respect and understand this large and rare feline predator. The smallest traces tell him a lot about the animals and their behavior.
We've seen the leopard is coming down now. Used to stick up to the escarpment along the top of the mountain as well. But since the last 5 years, we've seen it moving down towards the foothills. And it's a good indication that the leopard can go back to its circle range. But the problem is they will come in conflict with people, because people live along these foothills, and then they might take their livestock, and that's when the conflict starts.
Hadi Hikmani and his team of native rangers and nature conservationists are learning everything they can about the population and distribution of the big cats. They have even put up cameras in inaccessible spots that are triggered by motion sensors.
We have to find evidence that the leopard is still present in Oman. And we started in Dhofar Mountains, where we have put all these camera traps. And they provide us a lot of data about the leopard numbers, their breeding behavior, their mating, and also their presence. So they are small cameras, but they provide very valuable and useful information.
Before they reset the secret cameras, Hadi wants to know if the device has captured anything.
What we know that the leopard have been declining for quite a long time. And since we started the project, we have seen the leopards still roaming in Dhofar Mountains. We have seen leopards actually breeding, which is a good information and good news as well. So what we've seen, the population, maybe its range being collapsed into a small area, but they are still roaming Dhofar Mountains. That means, we cannot just stop here. We have to, do more work to protect this tiny, small population. I think the most important thing is to see yourself contributing to save an critically endangered species that almost gone to extinct from your region. We have lost some other mammal species from the region, and we cannot afford to lose the Arabian leopard.
So far, Hadi and his team have been able to prove the existence of 35 animals in the Dhofar Mountains. Shockingly, this is the largest population in the world. The total of Arabian leopards still in the wild is 200 animals. Even up here, the frankincense harvesters and livestock herders are getting far too close for comfort. Further down at sea level, a storm is brewing. Strong and unexpected, it has devastating consequences for the vegetable traders. The capricious weather is also causing a phenomenon on the beaches. Large amounts of crustaceans are being washed ashore. A feast for the seagulls. The storm is the harbinger of a new season. The Kharif. Kharif is the name of the Asian southwest monsoon that moves along the coast of Dhofar from mid-June to mid-September. The storm changes the countryside. Strong rains, like the ones brought by the monsoon from India, are rare in Oman. The moisture rises up the rock face of the Dhofar Mountains and condenses. During this time, the mountains are shrouded in dense fog. The condensation falls as a constant fine drizzle. The Kharif regularly creates a blooming natural spectacle. Occasionally, the Oman sounds just like a meadow on the corner of a forest in Europe. It's the lark, which is raising its young in the fresh grass. The annual weather phenomenon is responsible for much more moderate temperatures than elsewhere on the Arabian Peninsula. This attracts visitors from the heat-stricken neighboring states. Hordes of tourists depend upon and disturb the green idyll. But for the picnic in open nature, anywhere will seem to do. The Omanis are more selective and opt for a quieter spot with a view. The young men come from the north of the country. We ran away from the heat. The temperature in Nizwa is almost 47 to 48 degrees centigrade. Meanwhile, it's between 26, 27 up to 30 here in Salalah. You can see the difference. It's almost 20 degrees. Over 300,000 tourists visit Salalah during the Kharif, which is 3 times the city's population. Less than 2,000 of them come from Europe, even though it's a worthwhile sight, watching drizzling rain cause so much pleasure. Even if the rest of the Arabian Peninsula is on holiday here, the work in Salalah must go on. Like at the University of Dhofar, a private institution in the north of the city. The new campus can easily cater for 10,000 students. Female students are in the clear majority, and lecturers like Kayar Alansi are more sought after than ever.
When I was 6 years old, when I was in school, usually the teacher asked us what you want to be in future. We said usually doctor or policeman or officer. Yesterday, I was with the Scout and guidance cabin, and there are some small students, like 10 years and 9 years. When I ask what you want to be in the future, some of them they say I want to be engineering, I want to be a doctor, I want to go to the space. And they have courage to see something more than just to be a teacher. So the thinking is changing because of education.
Only 30 years ago, the majority of Omanis were illiterate. There were only 3 Quran schools in the whole country. Now, over 90% of children are going to a regular school.
Do you remember last lecture what we were talking about, the management? And we give example of the private sector in Oman and how it's important to play its role as social responsibilities in Oman. We should not depend only on oil. We should also depend in private sectors and to enhance this area. Forget about oil. If you notice these years...
By educating its young with an international outlook, Oman is preparing for a time when the oil has run out. English is considered a trading language and already taught in primary school. The Dhofar University has been developed according to the American model. Bachelor and master's degrees are offered, and the lectures are, of course, in English.
Why planning is the first function in planning?
One tips from the...
When it comes to the women rights in the Middle East, actually, the first female minister in the Middle East is Omani woman, and the first ambassador in the Middle East is Omani woman, and the first woman who get a PhD in GCC, and second in the Middle East, she was Omani woman.
In 2008, the Sultan issued a decree that women had the right to own land. Until then, it was a privilege reserved only for men. A right many women in other countries on the Arabian Peninsula can only dream of.
I'm so happy because I live here with equal right with my brothers, and we live in harmony and in peace with dignity and respect, and this is the most important thing. We've been recognized, we can speak our minds, and we are respected.
But in reality, once married, the life of most Omani women continues to play out in the home kitchen. But here, everyone is allowed to dream. During the Kharif, many of the Bedouins bring their camels from the searing heat of the desert to the cooler south. It's an old nomadic tradition. Migrating birds also find their way to the misty coast in southwest Oman. Despite the numerous building sites, there are still many unspoiled parts of the coast waiting to be discovered. Habitats for mangroves. The trees, which are up to 15 meters high, are salt tolerant and grow in the intertidal zone. Their so-called stilt roots lend them support at any water level. Just like the mangroves, many of the bird species survive in this border area between salt and fresh water. Flamingos, little bitterns, little egrets, and grey herons. When visitors from the desert come in the summer, some places can even get a little crowded. Many of the birds are only guests themselves. Greater flamingos can be found in Oman all year round. These youngsters still need to work a little on their colour. The camels are living up to their nickname, Ship of the Desert. That the water preservation experts are eating salty seagrass may seem counterintuitive at first. Being able to drink salt water is a rare ability in the animal kingdom. The camels can do so thanks to their high-performing kidneys. There are only a few places in the world where camels can take a bath. One of these places is the lagoon Quarori, at the foot of the Samhuram fortress in eastern Salalah. Samhuram was built in the 4th century BC. The doubled city wall protected the frankincense storage areas. From here, it was loaded onto ships and exported. The hidden natural bay in the lagoon was the ideal reloading site for valuable goods. Another fortress dating back to the 2nd century BC is currently being excavated in the center of Salalah. Alongside another outpost in the desert and the frankincense plantations in the north, the two fortresses make up a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the so-called Land of Frankincense. Saeed Al-Amri is one of the many archaeologists from all over the world trying to unearth the secrets of this antique settlement. Al-Balid city is a historical city that has flourished in this region for many centuries because of frankincense trading activities. The city flourished during the period between the 10th to 12th centuries. Meanwhile, the city was divided internally into three main areas: the king's area, including the castle and the large mosque, the area of settlements and houses, and the area for trading and storing frankincense and other commodities. Currently, we believe that these structures are small rooms, but this is only a hypothesis and it needs more evidence to be proven. However, our current belief is that these structures are small rooms. Al-Balid is to tell the history of the country as an archaeological park. Reconstructions and restorations will serve as attractions. The use of wood as a building material is particularly interesting. As I've told you, they also used wood in their buildings because wood gives a structure more stability and strength during disasters such as earthquakes. This wood probably comes from the local tree called mitan in Arabic and mutin in Sheri language, and they bring it from the nearby hills and plains. The excavation and restoration work are currently centered on the old palace. We believe that it's from the 10th century. According to the discoveries and archaeological excavations, the city flourished and was divided this way during this period. Also, the castle reached its ultimate fortified structure. Therefore, we're currently testing this hypothesis. There are only a few places in the world where the past and the present are so close to each other, where tradition and modernity go hand in hand like they do in Oman. This is particularly evident in the souk, the bazaar, an integral part of this country's everyday life. Many of the goods on offer are probably the same as hundreds of years ago. All the different types of frankincense are, of course, here too. Mariam Faraj does not sell the precious sap at her stall, but her specialty incense mixtures.
You mean my favorite incense? I really like this kind of oud incense. It consists of sandalwood, agar wood, musk, and 2 or 3 nice perfumes.
Smoking in an incense burner, Mariam allows her customers to try the different types. Once they have made their choice, they will fill their own burner at home to perfume all the rooms and even their clothes and hair.
Some people prefer to buy normal plain agar wood, others like waxed agar wood, others like perfumed agar wood or rice-at agar wood, according to customers' preferences. If God wills, we will continue, but we don't know who will come after us. We have worked in this profession for more than 20 or 30 years. We may die tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, who knows? However, there are definitely other people working in this profession, and they will continue preserving it.
A comparatively modern development is the so-called kuma, one of the 2 headdresses without which an Omani does not leave the house. An entire section of the souk sells the colourful little embroidered hats. They are no longer embroidered in Oman, but sewn together here and sometimes individually adapted. Omani boys grow up with them, and it becomes second nature knowing whether the hat is enough or a turban is needed for the occasion. We use the turban in official and social events such as weddings and Eid, as well as during working hours, while we use the embroidered cap at normal times, such as going for a walk or shopping with the family. Yes, indeed. It's possible to coordinate the color of the turban or the cap with the color of the dress. However, the color of the gentle white dress is consistent in nature with all colors. An occasion that clearly calls for a turban is the horse show at the end of the summer season. Even the president of the National Riding Federation is in attendance. The genealogy of each Arabian horse used to be passed on orally, but at some point this knowledge was lost. Nevertheless, the Omani are proud of their elegant animals. In comparison to European breeds, they are small horses, yet are said to carry heavier loads faster and further than other horses. The unity between man and horse is the event's motto.
It is actually meaning the strong bond between the riders and the horse as well, so they can be always together and that they are having a strong tie with each other. And it is also part of the strong friendship between the riders of different parts of Oman. So they are like holding hands and being a so strong friendship between themselves and the horse as well.
The finale is the lying down to sleep of the animals. It's hard to train into the horses and considered as the ultimate sign of dedication the horse can show its rider.
I'm a big fan of the Omani horses and the riders. I'm having a very strong tie with them. For us, we are in the community of the horse and we love them so much. We take care of them and we even take care of them as like our kids.
At the end of August, the monsoon period slowly comes to an end. To the west of Salalah, on the way to Yemen, the water that will soon dry up for many months is still gushing. Whilst there may be larger and more impressive waterfalls elsewhere in the world than the Ain Khor, and the rivers and streams are not spectacular, it does seem to be a life's ambition for the desert dwellers to drive their off-road sedans to these sources of yearning at least once. Social media in the Arabian Peninsula is flooded with water-themed selfies. This is home, and no one is surprised if one goes for a swim fully dressed. On the coast to the west of Salalah, in Muscat, there is another water feature to discover and admire. The notorious blowholes. Particularly high waves of surf push water fountains up through holes in the rock. For those eager to see plenty of Omanis enjoying themselves outdoors, the Kharif season is not to be missed. The end of the monsoon season also means the end of the Salalah festival, a folk festival as well as a cultural event for the city's visitors. The visitors are mainly Arabian tourists. The locals entertain their guests with the Al-Ayala dance. It's only performed by male dancers, as it was originally a dance symbolizing victory in battle. Behind the scenes, Nafa Suhail is baking traditional Omani rakik bread. The fire has been burning for hours at the bottom of the meter-deep hole.
Thank God, I don't feel tired, even though I sit here from 7 in the evening until midnight. Because we deal with many people and visitors coming from different places and nationalities. We also have friends here surrounding us, and they come to buy bread from us. We don't feel tired.
Every few minutes, she has to bend down into the hole and rearrange the breads.
What I have on my face is to avoid the heat and the ash that comes out from the oven. As you see, I have to face the oven for the whole day. This mask is really effective in protecting my face from the heat.
How nice to at least appear to have found a place to cool down. And a place where the family can openly celebrate together without inhibition. Oman is trying to bridge the gap between old customs and the new digital age, between national pride and opening up the country to international partnerships. According to the UN Development Programme, Oman is in first place when it comes to social and economic improvement in the last 40 years. What do the Omanis think about all the changes that have happened in such a short space of time?
Oman changed from tradition to be modern, but still have its identity. And this is, we are very take care of that things, that we will be modern, but we have to keep our identity with us.
This can be said of the country's trading goods, as well as the handicraft of a millennia-old culture. Because we've learnt it from our ancestors and we have to pass it on. That is our duty. Oman's different habitats offer surprising diversity and shape its people.
Here all my parents have been living all their life. Grand and grandfather have been living in the desert. And we've been growing here in the desert. It's home for us.
The country is home to impressive natural spectacles and a diverse animal kingdom. And when tamed, Oman can be transformed into a true Garden of Eden. These crops have been growing here for a long time. Onion, garlic, fenugreek, garden cress and other field crops. We'll continue growing these in Oman. But above all, Oman is the land of Sinbad, the land of seafarers. We inherited this profession a long time ago from our parents and grandparents. My father and his were all working in shipbuilding, and we will continue. We will bring our children here and teach this profession. Oman, a land from the fairy tales of the Arabian Nights.